Hi everyone, welcome to the Super Feeler podcast. My name is Laurie, and I'm super excited today to be joined by Kat and Shane. Kat coming all the way in from Scotland, and Shane from the US. Where are you in the US again, Shane? I can never keep track.
That's okay. I'm in Virginia, just outside of DC.
Virginia, gotcha. Okay, cool. And I'm Laurie. I'm calling from British Columbia, Canada. So we got 3 countries represented today, and this is our, I think, 4th episode of the BPD symptom series. Today we're going to be talking about chronic feelings of emptiness, which I feel like is one of those symptoms that's like kind of hard to wrap your head around unless you've experienced it. And then even that, it kind of like shifts. So we're very curious to hear everybody's perspectives on this today. Before we get started, just wanted to thank our new Patreon supporters, Sandra and Juliana. Thank you so much for your support. Just as a reminder, if you are able to support the show financially, you can do that for small donations monthly, get a bunch of bonus content. We really appreciate it. You get video episodes as well. If financial contributions are not feasible right now, I totally understand that. That's not a big deal. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the show. It helps more than you could possibly know. So thank you so much. All right, so chronic feelings of emptiness. That is literally all the DSM says about the symptom. Who wants to start? Maybe let's start with you, Kat. Like, what does this look like for you?
So it's something that's been around for a long time. And for me, it quite often comes with a spiral. And it feels very much like not being sure who I am, just feeling like there's not enough of me to be a real person. Like, I remember that from being really small, just being like, what is different about me that I don't get to be a full person? And never really understanding that, but feeling very much the shame of that. And like, I always had to pretend to be what was expected rather than what I was actually feeling. And that sense of like inside me versus outside me.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I guess, and then there comes that fear around that as well of, oh, what if people really get to know me and find out that there's not really anything there of substance and then reject me? Like it all kind of connects in that way for me. So it's all very kind of tangled with that for me as well.
That's super interesting. So what do you feel like is inside of you?
I think, so this is where my dissociation kind of feeds into this. So it's like each dissociative part will feel like we'll forget what's happened and what has, what I've been doing, or sometimes kind of quite big sections of things that have happened. And that kind of feeds into it because it's like I'll try and find a memory or a sense of something and it's not there. And I guess there used to be, like, I've done a lot of therapy and kind of worked out that there's stuff from like attachment stuff from when I was really young. But for a long time, what was inside just felt like, I called it the scared, and it was just anxiety. And if I tuned into it, I would just panic. And so I spent a lot of my 20s and early 30s kind of just running from it. And then now I'm really kind of facing it and working through it and meeting all of those younger parts and stuff like that. So yeah, just
Are you the person who's told me a lot about parts work, or is that somebody else?
Quite possibly.
Interesting. Yeah. So I know attachment is like a big thing. Can you explain a little bit about what that means?
So it's like an attachment wound. So where as a child, you should have a secure attachment figure, ideally. And if you don't, then you don't form that sort of sense of safety and connectedness and relationship. So that's part of the kind of emptiness and loneliness of just, so for me, I was 2 weeks premature, and back when I was born, that meant that I was put in an incubator and no one was allowed to touch me, so I didn't have that initial connection that we now kind of know babies need. I was also a baby in the era of let them cry it out, so I had a bungee basket which was literally on a bungee cord from the ceiling, and the idea was you bounced yourself back to sleep. So there was a lot of just, and then there was a lot of abuse went on in my childhood as well, and kind of other things that were going on that also just showed that adults and other people generally weren't safe or reliable or consistent. So there's that kind of lack of consistency. So if your caregiver is someone that you need to survive, which you do when you're a child, but they're also someone who is hurting you and frightening you, then your attachment is disordered.
Yeah, fair. Totally. And so how do you think that kind of has led to this feeling of emptiness?
I think part of it, honestly, is related to the sexual abuse, because it's that idea that there's my body, which belongs to other people, and then there's my self, who is irrelevant. And that kind of feeling of, like, I don't even get to inhabit the world. My reality is being gaslit constantly. So I'm being told how I feel, I'm being told what I like. And that means that, it just leads to that sense of not being enough in and of myself, because there was always an expectation to perform something else.
Yeah. Interesting. So Shane, what does this look like in your life?
I want to preface this with I'm just starting DBT, and one of my treatment goals is to work on my chronic feelings of emptiness. So I'm just kind of starting to explore it and like dive into it in a therapy realm. So I can tell you mostly like, I guess just like what it feels like. I typically, it comes up when I say goodbye to people. If that makes sense. I'll just be driving home and like, yeah, I had a great time with them, like felt like, I did all the socializing, right? Like we just like, we had a great time, right? But then I'll be driving home and just feel completely void inside. Like
Mm.
nothing of that good experience stuck with me. And I
Like
just
the only thing that was filling any part of you was the other person.
exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And typically, then what comes with that is just like my passive suicidal ideation comes up after that, some disassociating. And I think that I've spent a lot of time in my life like using drugs and alcohol to mask this feeling of chronic emptiness. So I haven't really, like, I don't like to sit with it. I really like to avoid it.
I was going to say, is it that the drugs and alcohol don't fill the void, but they just make you forget about the void? Is that a
Yes.
fair statement? Interesting. Okay. And I mean, I was going to say, and that worked temporarily, but I'm assuming that has not been the most like productive way of working on it if you're now working on it with your counselor.
Yeah, I kind of just like reached a point like with my use where I was like, this isn't making me feel good. Like, I just don't feel good. And this used to make me feel good. It used to make me forget about, this feeling. And yeah, it just kind of stopped working for me. So I was like, I guess I have to go full force into therapy now. I have like kind of no other option, otherwise like I kind of got to a point where I was becoming afraid of my suicidal ideation, that it would increase to something beyond, you know. Those feelings really got like intense towards the end of my heavy use. So I was like, it's this or it's therapy. So
I'm very glad you chose therapy.
me
So
too.
glad. You have no
Me
idea.
too.
And I know like at a time this was a hard thing for you to decide, not so much the drugs and alcohol versus therapy, but like just making, especially about work, right? You were like, do I focus on treatment or do I focus on work? And we can cut this if you don't want us to talk about it in public, but like, you were just like, everybody was like, you got to focus on yourself. Do it. This is worth it. I'm so glad that you did that because I feel like I've already seen so much change and it's so beautiful to see.
Thank you, Laurie. That really means a lot to me. It was a really tough decision, because ultimately like I'm choosing to be broke for a while.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to really live bare bones here, and that like kind of was just a really hard decision for me to make, but it's definitely was worth it. And looking forward to the future now, which is crazy because, I haven't really ever thought about my future or considered that I had one. So, yeah.
I feel that so hard, Shane. I think about so many moments of my life where I just like made a decision because I was like, I'll be dead anyways. I bought a car and I was like, like it's an 8-year payment structure. Like, I don't care. I'm not going to be here in 8 years. It's fine. And then to that shift of where you start going like, oh shit, I am going to be here in 8 years. And it's almost like a very strange, scary thought because there's like almost like a consequence to actions now because you're going to still be here for them, which is very interesting. Yeah.
I was just going to say, and dealing with consequences from, your previous self who didn't believe in this future, right? Like super fun thinking past me for that.
I call it the shift from putting off dying to planning to live. Because it's a massive shift.
Yeah. You know what's so interesting? In a totally non-BPD related example, I think, somebody correct me if you've heard of this, I want to say it's cystic fibrosis. And there's a new treatment for some sort of major health issue. I think it's cystic fibrosis. There's some sort of major health issue that or health innovation that has changed the trajectory of people's lives to like, you know, a 5-year lifespan after diagnosis to like unlimited lifespan. And one of the things they found in this research is that people were kind of, is it cystic fibrosis?
I think right? So.
Yeah. And so the research shows that people kind of panicked because they'd been planning their life for this short period of time. And then they realized, oh my God, I have this potential to live a fully normal 80-year life. And they went, oh my God, I don't have a mortgage. I haven't focused on my career. I haven't had kids because I didn't think I would be alive for them. And it kind of caused this like really interesting shift in how people had to look at their lives. And some people decided to not even take the drug because they were just like, I can't even comprehend the thought of living for that much longer. So just like an interesting physical health comparison to that kind of shift in suicidal ideation. Yeah, chronic feelings of emptiness for me isn't really something that I resonate with. Like, I would say that this is probably one of the diagnostic criteria that I wouldn't meet. And the only times that I feel like I have kind of met it is like when I'm in a deep depression. So I think it's more that as opposed to just like kind of chronic, where when I'm in like a deep, deep depression and I'm just laying there and I'm like, there's literally nothing. Like, there's nothing that will ever excite me. There's nothing that will ever make me happy. There's nothing that will ever make me want to live. I'm just going to lay here and I'm just this empty box of meat.
What the kids call bed rotting. What the kids call bed rotting these days.
Great word for that. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of the only context in which I really feel that I've felt this symptom. However, I did a webinar the other day, and the other panelist, I can link it in the show notes. The other panelist said something about chronic feelings of emptiness that I was like, oh my God. So she said something along the lines of she uses overproductivity to mask her chronic feelings of emptiness, because if she's constantly doing something, she can't be empty. And I literally was in this webinar. There's 150 people or whatever watching it. And I go, oh shit. I was like, maybe I do feel this. And I just haven't had the opportunity to feel it because I'm so hyper focused on never being bored. And like I have, and it's like a problem / whatever. I just live with it. But like, since I was a little kid, like, I want to say like before my parents got divorced, I would have a like Walkman with audiobooks on it. And I would listen to them before I went to sleep. And so I was probably like 9, 8, something like that. So I'd listen to them to go to sleep because my brain wouldn't shut up. And I still do that. I have to listen to a podcast when I fall asleep. I have to listen to a podcast basically all day, every day. Even if I have like, let's say I have a meeting, like a virtual meeting or whatever at work, and it ends and I have like 2 minutes, I put a podcast in to go pee and come back. And it's like, Laurie, like you shouldn't need to like have somebody else talking all the time. And, you know, I have a lot of childhood trauma around having a workaholic parent. But then at the same time, not that I'm a parent, but I definitely work too much. Like, and I'm not proud of it. It's just something that I just do, you know? So when she said that in that webinar, I just was like, perhaps I just don't let myself feel the emptiness. And maybe that's why when I'm in that depression, like that deep, deep depression, is the only time I feel it, because I can't be doing all this other stuff. Right? You're just literally bed rotting, like Shane said, and doing the literally at nothing. And even like if I try and do quote unquote nothing, like I'm really bad at it. I will be on my phone, or I'll be listening to a podcast, or I'll be like brainstorming about something else. Or like the only time that I feel like I can like shut my brain down is there's a spa in Whistler. Would recommend. Scandinave Spa. Incredible. My favorite place. If anybody is ever in BC and wants to go to Scandinave Spa, I'm always down. You can't have your phone. You can't have music. You can only have a book. You can't talk. And you spend like 6 hours, 7 hours there. And that's the only time that I'm able to like, oh, it's the best. Oh my God. And it's like a hot, cold, like Nordic spa thing. Oh my God. It's literally amazing. But the only time I can shut my brain off is when I'm there, because you are not allowed any of those distractions. But then at the same time, I'm going, well, I paid good money to come to this spa, so I better get my money's worth out of this spa, which is not really the point of taking a break from all of this stuff, right? So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of the only context in which I feel like maybe this resonates for me. And like also I think it's important to mention that like you only need 5 of 9 diagnostic criteria. And I know most of us have met way more than 5 of those diagnostic criteria, but yeah, this is probably the one that just really doesn't hit for me.
I really relate to the constantly listening to something, being on your phone, because I also almost experience like I feel like chronic like these feelings of emptiness like come up when I get bored too, when there's like I don't have like a certain amount of stimulation kind of like going on around me. And one thing that has kind of been my cure to that is getting myself out in nature. And I've been doing a lot of
Yeah.
fishing. So like I'm still doing an
So
activity,
manly.
but like I know, so stereotypical, like dude thing.
If your Tinder profiles are not you just holding fish, I'm real disappointed in you.
Well, I actually I'm not on any dating profile or any like
Okay,
social,
fair
like any
enough.
of that. So yeah, but certainly if I did have one, definitely
It
I
would
would
be
put a fish pickup. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that I like really relate, and it kind of sitting with it is uncomfortable, but I've been trying to like dip a toe into those like feelings of emptiness and like having that conversation with myself in my head of like, Shane, that you are loved. Like everything is fine. Like you're safe. You don't need to be in this headspace, I guess, essentially.
totally. And I think like the you're safe piece is so important, because I really do think of chronic feelings of emptiness as like a very, very connected to dissociation, which is obviously a coping mechanism against trauma and current and past, right?
We have now time is safe is our favorite little mantra for that. But yeah. And then,
I like that.
listening to
That's cool.
everything, definitely. Like my whole childhood as well, I'd be lugging because pre-Walkman, right, I had the Fisher-Price little cassette player with a little handle. And
Yeah.
I'd be lugging that around with like a big massive box of cassettes from the library.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny that like these things are so consistent across so many of us. Whereas like I've dated a lot of people and none of them had to listen to podcasts to fall asleep.
No,
Like that's
like
not
I
a
remember
thing
like
that
climbing
most people
trees
do.
with my little cassette player and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right? It's so funny because as a podcaster, people will reach out and be like, oh, like I listen to your podcast when I fall asleep. I don't want that to feel offensive, but just wanted to tell you that's not offensive at all.
No,
To me, those are my comfort shows that I listen to
exactly.
over and over and over again. And so like it's just so funny. You hear that all the time. So yeah, so Shane, you were talking about nature, and Shannon is here from Australia, who just had a power outage, which is why she's late. So, and also just to props to Shannon, because we literally changed the topic of the recording we were going to do today, and then she showed up, and we were like, by the way, we're doing a different topic. My bad. So, way to pivot, Shannon. Yeah, what does chronic feelings of emptiness look like for you?
Well, I was going to say that this isn't one that I relate to a lot, but I remember when they gave me the criteria in the DSM when I was diagnosed, and he talked about this, and I was like, don't be a dickhead. I had a lot of don't be a dickhead responses to...
You say dickhead a lot.
I know.
I love it. That is one of your favorite words, and I think it's hysterical.
I didn't relate to this at all when I first read about it, and I was like, this is not a thing. And I was quite unwell at that point in time. And he told me I had all 9. So I assume when you attempt suicide that he's probably going to just assume that I have chronic feelings of emptiness if that's what I've done. But since then, I would say it definitely shows up in times of dissociation. I don't think I understood what dissociation was until probably the last couple of years. I think I've actually been able to see myself doing it. Now I know what it is. And I definitely have been doing it my entire life. It is the safety mechanism when you feel incredibly unsafe that takes away that level of crisis almost. Like, I don't know if you guys experience it in the same way, but it's almost like I go from feeling everything to just feeling nothing.
Yeah.
And it's definitely present in those moments but as far as I can tell, it is just my body's response to feeling unsafe. When I am put in situations or where I'm triggered and I feel like and in saying that, like, I'm not walking around having situations, 3 or 8 times a month where I am actually unsafe. It's just when my body perceives that I am.
Yeah.
So in those moments when the emotions are too big, and I don't understand the science, you might be able to explain this better, Laurie, but in those times, it's like something happens where this thing takes over and it just takes all of those feelings away. And I just don't feel anything.
Yeah, it's like for me, it's like a light switch almost. It's like that drastic.
And I go from being that person, because I'm a bit like you, where, I have a day-to-day job. I have my own podcast. I'm doing stuff all the time. I've got kids. I've got a grandchild. Like, there's a billion things to do in every single one of my days. But then when that light switch flicks on, there's nothing. There's not, like, I can sit, and I'm like you, listen to tons of podcasts, go to sleep with a podcast in my ears every single night. And if that light switch flicks on, I could sit on the lounge and just with no TV, no nothing, and just not feel anything for an extended period of time. And for somebody who feels everything, like every single thing, so much of it all the time, it's a foreign concept when that happens. And I think that's where, for me, that chronic feeling of emptiness sits, because there's no drive. I don't care about anything. I don't want to feel different, because honestly, it's a nice little break when dissociation happens. Like,
God,
and
that's
it
so
generally
real.
happens at a time of immense discomfort. So I don't think I'm challenging those chronic feelings of emptiness. And I know I come out of it on the other side. I don't know how. I'm not that skilled yet, but I do. I think if I stayed in that for, like if I was there for a week or a month, things could get pretty bad. But I had a situation as an adult where I was really, really unsafe, like as unsafe as you could be. And to look at it from that perspective, I think I went into an extended disassociation during that time and tried really hard externally to make everyone think I was okay. But I was like a robot. I existed for months afterwards where I said the right things and I did the majority of the right things externally, so I was still going to work and I was still
like robotic though.
But it was robotic and there was nothing. I had no feeling in it. There's also one other time that I can remember before I was diagnosed where I'd been playing with meds and I hadn't been feeling great, so I'd gone back to the doctor a few times and we'd been playing with med levels. And I remember sitting on a beach one day and just bursting into tears. And I don't know who was with me, whether it was Scott or maybe it was Megan, I'm not sure, who is my sister-in-law. And they said, "Oh my God, what's wrong?" And I said, "This is the first time I've felt joy for as long as I can remember. So it must be there. You know, those chronic feelings of emptiness must be there underneath. But I think they come with apathy. So I'm not exploring them when they're happening the same way as I am, say, if I'm having a rage episode or if it's one of those other symptoms that turn up that cause distress. Because if that emptiness comes with disassociation, then sometimes I'm like, thank Christ, you know. So I don't know if that's different to everybody else's perspectives, but it's probably something I need to pay more attention to. But it doesn't generally put me in a situation where I'm in harm's way like some of the other symptoms would.
Because it's just like a negative symptom. Not negative in terms of bad. It's a negative in terms of less is happening instead of more is happening.
Yes. Yeah. So sometimes I just will ride that little wave and go, thanks for the holiday.
Yeah. Totally.
But like Shane, if I've got to level back out, nature's the place to do it. And just for your information, Shane, I started dating Scott when his profile picture was holding a fish.
Okay, so there's hope for me. There's hope. Yeah, there's so much going through my head right now about this. I guess I have a question for Kat. So it sounds like that you've done a lot of work like on your feelings of chronic emptiness. And I really, really resonated when you said like something along the lines of not having like a secure caregiver growing up.
Yeah.
That really hit home for me. So my question is, as somebody who has done work in this area, do these feelings ever go away, or is it just about how you manage it?
I think it shifts. So certainly, I think I said like I used to call that emptiness the scared, and it was like a big black hole, and if I went close to it, I was lost in it. Like I used to just have a loop, the same flashback on a loop, and I would be in flop, so frozen that you can't move your body, you're just stuck, you're kind of awake inside, and that flashback would be on a loop. And then when I started getting new memories about when I was really small and working on them, that kind of scared became something I knew what it was, and that helped a lot because it stopped being a big unknowable kind of scary thing that I could get lost in, and I could tag the feelings on there, and then at least then it would be looping those new flashbacks rather than just because what do they call it? They call it a nameless dread. It's just that empty like fear and dread of something, but it's like it's not tagged to anything visual or anything verbal. It's just completely empty and kind of existential. So tagging something on
kind of sounds like a Dementor in Harry Potter.
Exactly. Like yeah, the Dementors remind me a lot of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then
fuck J.K. Rowling, but we still love Harry Potter.
Yeah, fuck J.K. Rowling.
But yeah, so that definitely helped. And then it's interesting because the second last time that I had that flop, I still had the looping flashback, but I was also thinking about now time is safe and thinking about my breathing exercises and like pace breathing and that kind of stuff. And it lasted less time. So instead of 4 hours, it was like an hour. And then yesterday I was helping someone move, and so I was crashed out. So yesterday there was an interesting, I don't know how long it lasted. My body was asleep, but we were awake. So, and it was like but it wasn't flashbacks. It was having conversations and processing things and talking about things with like me and my other parts. So that was a really interesting kind of progress. So I guess it doesn't go away, but now it's not empty, it's not unknowable, and it's not adrift. So I went to a concert once ages ago, and the guy was talking about when he's on tour, he always says goodnight instead of goodbye at the end of the phone call to his wife. Because if he says goodbye, it feels too much, and he feels like a helium balloon that's been let go. And luckily I was with my friend who knows stuff and accepts what I'm like. So he said this, and I was literally on my knees on the floor just sobbing for about 3 songs. And she just kind of like patted me. But that kind of vision of being adrift has really kind of exemplified that feeling of emptiness for me. And then, but now it's like, yes, there's a part that is feeling that emptiness, but there's also parts that know that now time is safe and that now is not empty and now is connected. So that's a very long roundabout kind of answer, and I hope it answers the question.
Yeah, so just to kind of run it back through, so it kind of sounds like once you were able to gain this awareness around like these feelings that you were having, you've now kind of been able to break it down and just manage it in a way. And it sounds like the intensity of it is going, it's not as intense, or it doesn't stay for such a prolonged period of time.
Yes,
Am I
both of
correct
those
on that?
things. Yeah, both of those things. So yeah,
Okay.
it's getting that distance from it in a kind of Zen, observer mind kind of way.
I
Interesting.
feel like that's like me with all all BPD symptoms, right? Is like, I wouldn't say any of them have gone away, but they're all like fewer, lesser, and further between than previously, right? Like, I still have suicidal ideation as like kind of a chronic underlying narrative of my like thought pattern, but it's not like intense suicide ideation all the time. It's like kind of just like in the background. Yeah, anger too.
Damn, I was really kind of hoping that I'd be going through DBT and just like wave of a wand, be fixed. Wouldn't experience these symptoms. Like I would be okay. Like it's smooth sailing from here. So
No, I was just going to say, so like the work I'm doing with my therapist at the moment is going back into the feelings just before I dissociated, which is a really interesting kind of thing. So it's like the moment when the trauma became too much and kind of really feeling that and healing it. And then, so this model is kind of you heal it, and then that trigger is much less powerful. So it's going into that. So that would be, I guess, kind of like a possible follow on kind of thing. Because like DBT is about managing stuff, whereas there's a difference between managing and processing.
Are you doing
Right.
EMDR with that?
I tried EMDR. We got so far, and then
Not a fan?
my protector part said no. And I dissociated so much
Okay.
that she shouted my name and what year it was for about 3 or 4 minutes before I came back.
Yeah,
And then she was like, I think we should do
I
some
was
parts work.
wondering that because it's pretty intense.
Yeah. Like what we did manage to do was really helpful. And I still kind of use some of those techniques, but as something when you're really dissociative, it's not as good. It's really, really effective for like single incident PTSD kind of stuff, but less effective for complicated things.
I've experienced disassociation after every single MDR session, and it's one of those things where I go, oh, is this worth it? Like, because it's so hard. When it was just that you said that the triggers the intensity of them are lowering, and that's what my result is, and it's why I persisted with it, because it's the only thing that's been able to do that for me, even though it freaking sucks and causes all of the yuck. But so I'm really glad that you found something that works.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And I think the new form EMDR also involves cognitive processing, because what they found that if you don't do the cognitive processing, you need to do that. These people call it a tune-up. For every couple of years, you need to go back and do the EMDR again. So they're now building in some more kind of processing therapy elements to it as well.
I just want to, for people who don't know what EMDR is, just reiterate what that is. So it's a type of therapy that I think some of us have done, and it's bizarre. It's so weird. So it's called eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and I'm literally just going to read a description of it. Thank you, AI. Is a structured psychotherapy technique used to help individuals process and reduce the emotional distress associated with traumatic memories and experiences. And essentially, like, I think it started with like eye movement. So you would like move, like physically move your eyes, like left, right, left, right, left, right. And now there's other things. So like tapping they can do. And there's like buzzers, I
You
think.
get buzzers for your hands, and you can get a light bar
Yeah,
as well.
I had to do the tapping too.
Actually, moving my eyes was so triggering. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I just dissociated right out.
I seen the light bars on sale on Temu, and I was like, who is doing this themselves at home without a therapist?
Lots of people, I think.
It's terrifying.
Shane?
I was going to say, so I've done a little bit of EMDR, and I would use my headphones. So having sound in each ear.
I've done that too. I have a really hard time with EMDR because, well, first of all, because the times that I have done it, I've been so exhausted at the end that I just can't function for the rest of the day. And I usually see my counselor like Friday mornings, so I still have a full work day afterwards. And I literally was like, I can't function after this.
Yeah, no, I can't do anything.
But also because I'm avoiding doing it again.
I booked myself out for 3 days. That's what she told me to do. She said she was always like, when we were going to do a new one, she'd say, okay, this is the date and this is when we're going to do it. So I would
book the next 2 days.
And usually by day 3, I come good, but the day after is usually the worst, and in all kinds of ways. So I put all of those suicide prevention plan stuff in place on those days too. And I've never been in that space, but I make sure that I let people know that there's stuff going on, and that's going to be a rough day, and every single time it has been.
Interesting. Yeah, the concept is bizarre. Like, it's one of those therapeutic techniques where you're like, this can't possibly be evidence-based. And then you look at the evidence and you're like, holy shit, it's evidence-based.
It's the best research therapy there is, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it's kind of like rewiring your brain by you moving from different hemispheres of your brain while you're processing this traumatic experience.
The bilateral stimulation tells your brainstem that you're safe while you're cognitively in the presence of a memory.
Right.
So it reconnects all those links in it.
And and what I find really hard about it is I have, I've never been diagnosed with this. I can't even remember what it's called now, but I have a very hard time visualizing stuff. There's a word for it. I can't remember what it's called now. And there you go. That's the one. And like, if you say like, if you like close my eyes and picture an apple, like I got nothing. Like, I know what an apple looks like, but I can't picture an apple. And people, I don't know, it's very strange. So the issue with the EMDR is that a lot of it is visualizing the trauma. And so I got really frustrated when I was first experiencing it, because I was like, I literally can't. And like, trying to explain that to my therapist, it wasn't until I had a word for it that I was able to really like do a good job of being like, I actually can't visualize things. And also, I think, Kat, you kind of mentioned it's hard for traumas that aren't like a one-off, right? Because like, how do you picture chronic like neglect? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
the EMDR is very specific.
So that was really hard. And and so what my counselor did say is like, we can pick an example of that thing and try and do it. But I just have such a hard time. Anyways, I've literally been avoiding doing EMDR again for a year and a half, and it's working like a charm. Every time I have an EMDR like appointment, I cancel it. And then now my counselor's like, you need to start coming in person. So I started coming in person because I did like virtual for a long time during COVID. And then she's like, when you come in person, we're going to do EMDR. And I've somehow been able to talk around EMDR for like 6 months in person. And she finally called me on it the other day. She was like, so here's the thing. Remember 6 months ago when you started coming in person and we said we were going to do EMDR and we were going to use the first session to set it up and then we were going to actually do EMDR? We still haven't even started. And I was like, So, and it's not, and to be honest, I find it, the parts of it that I have done are minimal and have been helpful. But I just like, there's something about it where my body just kind of like, just shuts down. Like it's truly like I start dissociating and I'm so tired, like collapsible tired. And it's just fascinating. Is there anything that people wanted to say about this chronic feelings of emptiness that we haven't mentioned yet before we talk about a little bit more about what can help?
It took me a second to process like a lot of what Kat, like what you said. Just I also really resonated with that not feeling like you have a place in this world, like that you like really kind of can't belong. And I'm sitting here thinking about it, like I would have to say that you know, this symptom for me is probably the one that like I fear the most and that I have experienced the longest. Like I remember feeling and having those thoughts that like I'm just in it. It probably, I think, it relates to, me being trans, me being queer, and that not really being like accepted or understood in my family, especially too, like, y'all want to hear something kind of fucked?
Yeah, always.
Always love it. Okay. So my parents actually had conversation, like, so my parents separated when I was in fifth grade, but they had a conversation, like, I guess when they were still together about me wanting to become a boy. So we all knew, like, so everybody knew that I already was trans before I even had the words, like, to
Mm.
describe it. So I think that that's where, this feeling of like always being an outcast and like misunderstood just comes from that, that family environment as a kid. And so, anyways, yeah, this is the one that I've experienced the longest symptom wise.
Shane, I know that your mom, like, I know your mom's kind of in the picture-ish. Where is your dad around?
I have not spoken to my dad in it's 2025. So the last time I think I spoke to him was Christmas of 2022.
Okay. Yeah, I've never heard you talk about him before, so that makes sense.
Yeah, he kind of stopped being a father figure for me when he started. He basically after they separated, he got remarried. I think it was less than 6 months later and was having
Wow.
a baby within a year. So he kind of, I felt really, I think, abandoned by him. He
Hmm.
went and started this new family. And like, there were times where he would be like, no, I can't take you to go get a haircut because I have to pay for something for my other children, you know?
Yeah, so you were the second priority from age 10 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, about 12. So
Okay, yeah.
he hasn't really been a father figure to me in like a really long time. So,
That sucks. I'm sorry.
I felt bad about it for a long time, but and all this therapy work that I've done, like I've just kind of made the decision that like I wasn't going to feel sad about it anymore. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Some of that
Yeah.
radical reality.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't deserve you. Yeah. Yeah, fuck that. Yeah, radical reality. God, I love Dave. He's a brilliant man. If you have no idea what we're talking about, go listen to our radical acceptance episode because Dave came up with this radical reality concept that I'm like, we need to go bang on Marsha's door and be like, ma'am, this is what it should be called. Oh my gosh. Anyways, any other like emptiness thoughts? I mean, it feels like we kind of really ended up going into like the dissociation conversation because I think they're like inherently connected. And I find it so interesting that they're two different things because dissociation in the DSM is like a lot of different examples, right? Like there's like, it's a very long winded, let me see if I can find it, a very long winded.
There's a lot of very different ways to dissociate as well, though, because it's a spectrum all the way from, just like driving home on autopilot to having full amnesia for like whole
Yes.
days and stuff. No, like it was quite recently the first time that I like actually admitted in therapy that I didn't remember what we talked about the last time. I was like, I don't think I was here. So clearly someone else was around. And then she told me what we talked about.
The way that you talk about dissociation is so fascinating to me because it almost feels like a dissociative identity disorder, kind of like multiple like personalities
that's
in
the direction
that
we're
sense. Like,
leaning in. Yeah. We're leaning in that direction.
yeah, it super feels that way when you explain it. So that's super interesting to me. I'd love to do like a solo episode just about that because I find for people who don't keep up with all the changing language in the mental health field, which is very fair, there's, multiple personality disorder is what that kind of used to be called. And then they started calling it dissociative identity disorder. And then I actually was just listening to a podcast. Let me find it here. They call it multiplicity. Have you heard that?
Yeah, or plurality. Was that multiplicity in me?
This is a podcast called Nobody Should Believe Me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
Super
check
interesting. Nobody Should Believe Me is an interesting podcast. It's not actually about dissociative identity disorder. It's about Munchausen by proxy, actually. It's a very interesting podcast. Again, when you listen to podcasts all day, you stumble down some very strange podcasts. Yeah, but it was interesting because they had a whole season where they talked to one of the survivors of Munchausen by proxy had developed dissociative identity disorder or multiplicity. And I was like, that would actually be so I wrote it down because I'm going to try and figure out if I can get them to come on the podcast just to talk about what that feels like because I think borderline personality disorder, again, people think sometimes we're different people, right? And I also feel like it's sometimes in the way we talk about it can be hard to negate that, if that makes sense. Like, I have like this Phyllis character in my life. I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast before, but like when I was really ill, my friend Zagum came up with this like alter ego for me, basically, which her name was Phyllis. And he said it was because it rhymed paranoid Phyllis, which doesn't rhyme. He's a brilliant man, but it doesn't rhyme. And so we had this kind of code where if I was like really unwell, unsafe, whatever, I would like call my friend and be like, hey, it's Phyllis. Like, you need to pick up the phone.
So Dr. Fox talks about, so he talks about
I'm trying to get him on the show too.
And your BPD brain. So like your BPD brain says this, you say that.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's Phyllis to me.
So the interesting thing as well, so with the plurality, so you can have different things. So like some of the parts can have BPD and others don't.
Oh my God. That's confusing.
Yeah.
Zoom in that moment was priceless.
I have this like I got a new camera and then I like messed with some
settings,
so it does
same
this
thing.
And I always, there you go. And I don't quite know how it works yet, but that I saw that happening and I was like, that was iconic. Like, I wish that I had planned that. Like,
dun dun dun.
God. There you go. Yeah, exactly. So good. Watch the video episodes, guys. You get some weird things that happen here. That's so funny. Yeah, that's fascinating, Kat. Like, that's just beyond. We're gonna have to do a solo episode about that because I think, because dissociation is such a huge part of your story.
Yeah, and like I think the way that they kind of proved it was there was somebody where one alter had diabetes and the other one didn't.
What?
So they could actually check what their insulin levels were doing and be like, yeah, that's definitely
the insulin
different.
Levels.
Yeah, because normally, you can't really kind of say
bodies are fucking crazy
in my head sometimes and not the rest of the time. It's like, but when it's something they can measure physically, can tell.
Wow.
Have you, so cool. Kat, ever heard Jenny Haynes interviewed? She's the author of a girl called the author of a book called "The Girl in the Green Dress," or the girl in the green dress. She's fascinating. I'll send you an interview.
Awesome. Thank you.
And when she talks, you actually hear her voice change as as the different people come through, and they'll actually come in and introduce themselves. And I learned more about DID from this lady than anyone else. She's extraordinary, and her story is incredibly hard. But
no, I bet. No, she's cool though.
Yeah.
Because for years, like people have said, "Oh, you sound different when you're doing that," and it's because it's someone else.
Fascinating. So, in terms of what helps with this chronic feeling of emptiness, I mean, I think we've talked a little bit about how this seems like kind of an elusive issue that is hard to kind of pinpoint, right? It's not like anger where you can like list 10 skills that would be helpful in that moment. But it sounds like as much as maybe distraction isn't always a positive thing, it is a skill. And I think it's fair to say that that is a skill. EMDR as a therapy to try and manage, like to try and address some of this cause of some of these issues potentially, but also very hard. So, bear that in mind.
So the model that I do is called the compassionate resource model. That's quite a new one that was developed by somebody in America and somebody in Aberdeen.
What does that look like?
So that's the one where it's very much parts work. So you go in, it is very visualization heavy, but so you go into basically you visualize your safe place, but you also anchor it somatically. So you're very aware of your body and being present in now. And you then invite a part into that safe space to then speak. And then and then eventually when you've kind of got used to that and all the parts trust the therapist, then you go into the trauma memories, but within that very kind of grounded and...
What was that called again?
The compassionate resource model.
Compassionate resource model. Okay. I'll add that to the show notes too. If there's any good kind of summaries of it, let me know and I can add that because that's super interesting.
Yeah, there's not massively. There's just kind of their book that they
Are there
wrote.
any?
Sorry.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I can add the book. I don't know if anybody actually clicks on those links, but I find they're helpful to have just in case anybody, is looking for something. Sometimes I do when I listen to podcasts. Shane or Shannon, how about you? Anything that is helpful for these? Maybe Shane, you can start.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I guess, so I don't know why, like, I don't know exactly why, like, I experience, like, you know, emptiness on such an intense level, but I guess I'm doing more therapy for that, right? To figure that out. And I think that that's a way to tackle this issue. But as far as in the moment when I am experiencing like these feelings of emptiness, it's about whatever skill that I need to use to get myself to that safe place, whether that is maybe a little bit of distraction or is it doing some grounding techniques? Um, is it sticking my face in a bowl of ice water, just to kind of shock my system? And then, typically like once I get myself to feeling safe and grounded, then, those feelings don't last so long. It's interesting that you all mentioned about like the dissociation around this. Like I know I do it, haven't necessarily explored it and sat with it much. So it's going to be interesting. So like when these feelings come up, I'm going to try to track and see like the ways that I just disassociate to see how that piece plays into this. So, but yeah, I think that's all I have.
No, those are all great. I think, yeah, some of those mindfulness and just like grounding in the present moment things would help a lot. Shannon, how about you?
I'd say similar to Shane about grounding, mindfulness, being in nature, distraction, that kind of stuff. But and this is going to be a little bit complex, and because I haven't really thought it through, I'm thinking on the fly. And it's not a skill, I don't think, but connectedness for me. When I feel empty, like there's no emotions, when I connect with other people, sometimes their emotions can kickstart. So say if it's with Scott, like even just crawling into my snuggle corner, which is in this little section of his arm, that is my safe spot. And I can just say to him, I need to get into the safety position. And we know that that's what's happening. And I don't know if that's a dopamine thing, like whether you get that dopamine hit and the serotonin starts to work and things start to level out there. There's definitely a physical response outside of just love,
Yeah, I would call that oxytocin and co-regulation.
Yeah. Connecting with other people and then feeling their feelings, if they're telling me about something really great that's happened or something that they're really sad about, seems to almost jumpstart my own. So when there's nothing and I'm just empty, sometimes I will piggyback off other people.
That's so relatable.
And when that happens, it just it's like jump starting a car. You get that jolt. Yeah. And as soon as those feelings start to work again, then they just show up in all of the places again. So I don't know if that's a skill. I feel like Marsha might have something to say about it.
I mean, whatever skills work for us, they don't have to be they don't have to be DBT skills, right? Yeah. They can just be whatever helps.
Sorry, I was going to say, it sounds very much like in Marsha's memoir, when she talks about working with people who are suicidal. It sounds very much like how she would help them.
Yeah.
So she would go around to their house and just sit them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like participate, really.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, that's it. There we go.
There you go.
That's a DBT skill. Yeah. Yeah.
And you could tie opposite action to it, because a lot of time when you feel empty and horrible, you don't want to connect with other people. You don't want to talk. You want to. I know if I wake up in the morning and I don't want to open my bedroom blinds,
there's something. You need to open your bedroom blinds.
Yeah, that's my thing. Yeah. If I don't open the blinds, there's something hanging on there that I need to sort of watch for. Maybe it's you could almost put opposite action on it, like that. I want to shut myself away, but instead you choose to connect because that's going to be the thing that kicks it off again.
Yeah, Shannon, that's interesting because I guess this is what I call my, body doubling. I'll use this, as a skill.
Yeah, okay.
Where I'll try to call a friend at least, or but really, really works for me is just having another person existing next to me. That makes me feel like I'm not alone in the world. Because sometimes,
Yeah.
like, if I do try to reach out to a friend over the phone, it still doesn't land. That connection doesn't, and I'm still left with those feelings of emptiness. But like something about just a physical body being there and just letting me exist, it's that light switch just flips back to the on position.
Yeah. So true. I really wish you lived near me, Shane, because I love just doing stuff when other people are just there. Like going to a coffee shop with friends and just not talking to each other and just sitting there with our headphones in doing our own thing is like my favorite activity, and none of my friends do it with me. So I would
Bummer.
like not a single one. It drives me fucking nuts. So I wish we lived closer because I would do that with you all the time.
I know. I'm same. If I were closer, I would.
Yeah, I'm also not going to fly to Virginia to do it, though. No offense to you. Fair, I think you're amazing, but I don't have that kind of money. Subscribe to Patreon. No, I'm just kidding. Please, for the love of God, no. No, I just think that kind of stuff is so helpful, and like, I also feel like that's one of the things where, like, in the Super Feelers Club, if I come in feeling kind of like I don't want to be here, or like I don't feel like this is going to be meaningful. And then people start sharing their wins. And that just like it's like the Grinch's heart growing 5 times bigger or whatever, right?
Literally.
And you're just like these people, it gives me all of the things that I needed inside myself to hear all of these amazing humans doing all these awesome things. So I think that helps too. Awesome. Well, this is such an interesting symptom. And I'm really looking forward to talking about dissociation in a future episode, because I think we like touched on parts of it, but not in all of the concepts, right? Like we're talking about this one kind of niche form of dissociation. So I think what I'll probably do is like separate these so that dissociation is like 3 episodes from now or something, so that we can kind of like give ourselves more time to reflect on what that looks like. But I love and appreciate you all. Yeah, well, to be fair, I shouldn't also switch topics on you guys when we get here. But I know, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure Heather like really wants to talk about anger, and she's not here. So I was like, well, and I know Kat and Shane both wanted to talk about chronic feelings of emptiness. I was like, okay, we'll do that. But this has been so much fun. I will see you all in a couple weeks. And Kat, let's connect on doing a solo episode about the DID stuff, multiplicity stuff. Totally. Shane, I know you already have a solo episode coming up. Shannon, we've already done one, but we have. Thank you so much for listening to the Super Feeler podcast. This episode was recorded on the traditional and unceded territory of the Matsqui and Sumas First Nations. If you'd like to learn more about the Super Feeler podcast, share your story, or participate in the Super Feelers Club, which is our peer support group, it's totally free, virtual, and open to anyone who experiences intense emotions or has borderline personality disorder, please check out the link in our show notes or go to laurieedmondson.com. If you would like to support the show, we would very much appreciate it. There's an option to do monthly small donations at whatever denomination you'd like, and you get bonus content, extra resources, and extra connection to me throughout. That can be found on patreon.com/superfeeler, or again in the notes below. Thanks again, and have a great day.